Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard Caesar 924 coming at you with another video for you guys today. So I'm gonna be sort of re-recording this video for you guys today. I actually uploaded a video regarding WWE's brand split and just giving out my honest opinion on the idea of WWE reinstating the brand extension. So it's gonna take place on July 19th when SmackDown goes live on Tuesday nights, which will be regular basis for WWE SmackDown. So they've been on Thursday nights initially since '99, and then they moved to Friday nights around 2005, and then moved back to Thursdays by moving from Sci-Fi to USA, and just news broke out not too long ago that WWE, after so many years of having SmackDown being taped, so this will be the time where SmackDown will be live on Tuesday nights, where normally they would tape their shows for many years, but now it'll be live on Tuesdays. So it should be very interesting to say the very least. Now, this, like I mentioned, this will also coincide with the reinstating of the brand extension that'll come into effect that night. So my overall thoughts on the WWE brand extension is that it's WWE did this the first time around. They started it around 2002 when this was at the time when WWE had purchased WCW and ECW, and also given the fact that they signed in a lot of the wrestlers that came from those particular two companies at the time that they folded. So it got to the point where WWE just had such a massive roster, and to the point where most of the wrestlers weren't really given a lot of screen time or significant character development. So, to kind of compensate on this issue, WWE went out their way to start up a concept which would be called the brand extension, where you have the roster being split in half. So, you would have two shows that would operate very differently from one another. So, you would have wrestlers on one night, like Monday Night Raw, that they could only appear on Monday Night Raw, or guys that are on SmackDown that can only appear on SmackDown. So they ended up doing a draft that on that Monday Night Raw back in April of 2002 to determine which wrestler would go on such and such TV show. Over the years, I mean, they started off at the time when the brand extension started, only those wrestlers could only go to those shows, and that they couldn't cross over from one show to another. Not like what you could do like around 99, 2000, 2001. So once you're drafted to a particular TV show, you only stay there unless there's another draft lottery that's going on. Um, so especially like a couple years after that, over the as the brand extension went on, a lot of wrestlers started to appear on such and such TV show. Like you would see SmackDown guys appear on Raw and just constantly showing up on a regular basis. And that became more apparent around the time, I think around like 2006, when WWE had decided on to bring back ECW as a third brand as part of the brand extension. So um, the roster just started to get overcrowded at that time, and this would be the start of where wrestlers from one brand would suddenly appear on another show, despite the fact that they represent another show. So, like, even though, like, for instance, Matt and Jeff Hardy, when Jeff Hardy returned in 2006, he would appear on Monday Night Raw while his brother Matt would be on SmackDown. But eventually, they ended up reuniting the Hardy Boys, despite the fact that those two wrestlers represented different brands. So this became more and more common as the years went by. And around, I want to say like 2011, when they started to do the Super Show, like when SmackDown wrestlers started going over Raw, that pretty much signified the end of the brand extension. Which actually ended on a premature note. It's like the brand extension didn't. Like WWE never announced officially that the brand extension would be over, but it was just kind of like a very subtle decision to phase out the brand extension without directly announcing it to the viewers. When I heard the news, or at least read up the article about WWE contemplating on bringing back the brand extension, it just kind of had me kind of skeptical at first because WWE just doesn't have the same amount of a big roster like they did like around 2001, 2002 when the initial brand extension took place. And now that WWE is starting to, call up some wrestlers from NXT and also other wrestlers that formerly used to wrestle in WWE to, come aboard and to make a return, and to coincide with the brand extension with Raw and SmackDown and bring up more wrestlers, from different companies. And I'm just kind of very concerned as far as the direction that they're going to be going with. I mean, I understand WWE's just kind of gotten, just some low ratings over the years, and WWE's just trying to bounce back by resolving an issue like that. And even when Raw has like 3 hours worth of content, it just kind of comes off as a chore, just having to sit through 3 hours, and even the ratings aren't really doing all that spectacular either. Like most of Raw's ratings are like 2 million viewers as opposed to 3 million viewers from the Ruthless Aggression era, or somewhere between 4 to 8 million viewers like they did during the Attitude era. So WWE's kind of been sort of a downward spiral in terms of the ratings and even in terms of like storyline quality wise. And WWE's trying to kind of resolve this issue, like I mentioned, by bringing Raw and SmackDown and splitting the rosters once again. It's just there are some advantages as far as the brand split's concerned. Like you will have like wrestlers that don't really have a direction or they don't get a lot of screen time would appear on the show on a regular basis, like Jack Swagger or Zack Ryder, who aren't really doing anything noteworthy at the moment. So this could be like a good opportunity uh, to expose some of these wrestlers and to give them a fair amount of screen time to the point where they may potentially um, develop their characters and really give them some sort of like a storyline to really have the wrestlers invested in these, like those two wrestlers like I mentioned. Um, and you also have like championship belts. Like each brand would have their own different championship belt exclusive to that brand. So, like SmackDown initially had the U.S. title, and Raw would have the Intercontinental title, which would serve as the mid card titles for different brands respectively. So that's another thing that could make the two brands stand out. And with Raw would be kind of like the sports entertainment aspect of shows. Like only the top wrestlers primarily would appear on Monday Night Raw, and SmackDown would have like it would emphasize more on the athleticism, more on pure wrestling, as opposed to Monday Night Raw, which centers around sports entertainment characters that aren't really known for their wrestling ability, just kind of more on just kind of more charismatics, more larger in life characters would appear on Raw, while SmackDown kind of emphasizes on the pure athleticism of certain wrestlers. And if you look at the SmackDown six, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Edge, Los Guerreros, and Rey Mysterio, that all emphasize the technical wrestling style that you would see on SmackDown for most of the brand extensions. Um, so I think it could really work out having these two shows kind of distinguish themselves, and with SmackDown going on Tuesday nights, it kind of gives a reason to have viewers tuning in to see what's going to happen, because SmackDown isn't going to no longer going to be taped. So this could give an advantage for the viewers to tune in to SmackDown without having to look up spoilers. I think this could be a good advantage for SmackDown because it's definitely got low ratings for quite a long time, and the fact that it's just kind of used as a recap show from Monday Night Raw, sort of like what WCW had with Thunder. Like it was mostly a recap show from Monday Nitro, but you would have like all these lower tier wrestlers, competing on Thunder. So a lot, for the most part, not a lot of fans were kind of willing to sit through SmackDown, especially uh, basically being rematches from Monday Night Raw, and there's barely any storyline direction like here in for the most part. So I think with SmackDown moving live to Tuesday nights, I think this could be a big advantage, especially for the viewers. I'm not sure if they're gonna. I think they're gonna do the brand split. Well, they're gonna do the brand split. I meant like brand exclusive events. Like I was looking up at e-wrestling news, and I was looking up at the rumored calendar. So I'm basically taking this through a grain of salt because the calendar that they had might not seem official as of this moment, but um, I'm probably gonna post it down the description box. I was just looking up at the possible calendar that, especially after SummerSlam, there have been a couple of changes or additions to the pay per view calendar. So one of the pay per views that I noticed that was getting brought back in September was a Backlash, because this was like one of their older pay per view events from back in the day. And rather than being in April, Backlash will be held in September, and it would be a SmackDown exclusive event. So, and while you also have the returning WCW Clash of the Champions, which now owns with WWE, which called it Night of Champions, but now it will be entitled Clash of the Champions, and that's going to be like a Raw exclusive event. So my thoughts on that is, well, it's cool to see different set of wrestlers having to wrestle certain TV shows or special events. I'm kind of really concerned the fact that this is also going to add more uh, special events to the calendar, because now that we've got the WWE Network and basically they show it all the time online, you could go on there and look up at all the massive content that WWE's produced. And now that they've got the returning of the brand extension, this will also coincide with the potential return of brand exclusive special events or pay per views. But so that's kind of one of my concerns, is just the fact that they're going to end up oversaturating the pay per view calendar, and it's just very difficult to really keep up with all these shows. And I have to sit through like 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, and then having to sit through SmackDown the next day, which is like 2 hours. And I heard like a while back that it might be like some speculation that they were going to try to go for a third hour SmackDown, but I'm really hoping that's not the case. I mean, I like professional wrestling. I've been watching, like, most notably WWE for quite a long time, and at the same time, I'm just not like that crazy about having to sit through like wrestling like almost every day. And and then you have like Sunday nights, which would normally be the night for pay-per-views, so you have to tune into like 2 nights of free TV wrestling to actually um having to watch through the next 2 days of wrestling. And it just kind of seems more of a chore as opposed to being hyped or showing your appreciation for wrestling. And then with the brand exclusive pay-per-views, I mean, WWE had went out their way to actually try this experiment around 2003 when they did Bad Blood, which was like a Raw event, meaning that only wrestlers that primarily wrestle on Monday Night Raw or Sunday Night Heat would only wrestle at that pay per view, while SmackDown wrestlers wouldn't appear on Bad Blood, but they would appear on the next pay per view, which would be Vengeance. So it's kind of back and forth, especially with the B level pay per views. So they only had their own events, and then like the only times that they would cross paths would be like the big four pay per views like SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. So, when it came to the brand exclusive pay per views, they were very hit or miss, but mostly misses because, especially if you look like in 2004, like when SmackDown after Brock Lesnar left, I like it. it was very hard to sit through some of those pay-per-view events. And like Judgment Day 2004, like you would have like weird throw phone in undercard matches like Mordecai and Scotty 2 Hottie, and or like Luther Reigns and Charlie Haas at the Great American Bash, and Kenzo Suzuki against Billy Gunn, like all these random undercard matches that would appear on these brand split pay-per-views. And um, it really kind of hurt the buy rates, and it kind of really turned me off in terms of the quality. And a lot of that had to do with, like I mentioned, when Brock Lesnar left WWE, it's like SmackDown just needed top stars. And, you had Kurt Angle, who had to take time off because, he was undergoing neck surgery. And Big Show had his personal problems, so he had to be written out for the summer of '04. And then, even like around like ECW, especially when they brought that in, like certain, like you have all these three brands, it's so overcrowded. And there would be times where one TV show would have the bigger roster, more diverse, and they will always get a more of a, they get all the top stars or the more known stars, while like a show like SmackDown or ECW would kind of get the short end of the stick. And if you watch like the ECW draft in 2008, where they were starting to take away like some of the other established ECW, um, a lot of wrestlers that were wrestling on ECW, like they were kind of getting raped in the draft in 2008, and like Taz was like freaking out, it's like we need some kids. And so ECW, like especially even though it was like a 1 hour show when they brought it back, it was kind of sad because it didn't really draw very massive ratings like they hoped, and especially like when they brought it back in 2006. And to see just the big decline, throughout those 4 years. Um, so there could be kind of like a detriment in terms of the roster within the two shows. And that's kind of what I'm afraid of as far as the brand split's concerned. Like one show would have the bigger stars, and the other show would get like a bunch of no-namers that are entirely like they're entirely rookies that are just trying to make a name for themselves, and we don't even know who the hell these are. Especially when you take out all like the big main eventers and they put them on another show, and then um, like even like in 2004, like I always bring up 2004 for some reason because it was just it was such a far cry from what SmackDown had been doing around 2002 and 2003. And like Monday Night Raw would take out all the top names, and they even took out some good names like Chris Benoit, Edge, even solid undercard wrestlers like Rhino and Shelton Benjamin, Tajiri. And then like SmackDown would get like Rene Dupree or Rico, or trying to think of someone else, the Dudley Boys. So like it just pains me at times just to actually watch the brand extension throughout most of the brand extension's run. So I'm really hoping that this time around that WWE could get their act together. And I feel that unlike the first time around where the brand extension, there wasn't really like especially now with WWE having the WWE network and just having the most diverse mix of wrestlers, more that have bigger credentials that made a name for themselves overseas or in the independent circuit or Japan. So I think this could be a great opportunity for WWE, especially with the brand split that the second time around. That I think they could really pull off potentially. And hopefully Raw and SmackDown would both come off very equal and very unique and distinguished from one another, as opposed to just having one show be the more dominant TV show in terms of the roster and quality, while SmackDown would get like the shitty wrestlers and just very questionable booking. So I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that this time around that Raw and SmackDown would start to improve in terms of their booking, but that'd be a long shot because knowing WWE's track record, so I probably shouldn't hold my breath there. But at the same time, I would like to be optimistic, but not necessarily too overly optimistic. But uh, all I, all I ask is that hopefully WWE would at least gain something out of the brand extension. So that's really all my thoughts on the brand extension. Uh, Thank you all guys for watching. So leave down your comments down in the comment section below. Just tell me what your thoughts are in regarding the WWE reinstating the brand extension. And until next time, this is the Gold Standard User 924 signing out.